Good evening, everyone, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public. Thank you very much for coming to our event this evening, hosted by the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs in conjunction with the U.S. Embassy in Budapest. My name is Gladden Pappin. I'm the president of the Hungarian Institute of International Affairs, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our event on New Momentum in Hungarian-American Relations, a conversation with Chargé d'Affaires Robert J. Palladino. Chargé d'Affaires Palladino assumed leadership of the Embassy of the United States to Hungary on March the 7th. He's a career member of the Senior Foreign Service of the United States with extensive experience addressing critical foreign policy and national security challenges across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. He most recently served as Deputy Executive Secretary in the Office of the Secretary of State. Previously, Mr. Palladino held key leadership roles, including as U.S. Consul General to the Kurdistan region of Iraq, and during President Trump's first term, Chief of Staff to the then Deputy Secretary of State, Stephen Biegun. He also served as Deputy Spokesperson for the Department of State and Director of Strategic Communications and Acting National Security Council spokesperson on the U.S. National Security Council. He has also served in a variety of overseas postings spanning Asia in Guangzhou, China, Europe, in Milan, and the Middle East. He holds degrees from the University of Notre Dame, Washington and Lee School of Law, and the U.S. Army War College, and speaks Mandarin Chinese and Italian. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'd like to invite Mr. Palladino to the stage, and we will begin our conversation. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. You've now been in Hungary for about a month,
31 days.
31 days. So we're having the required 31-day conversation. So with 1 month under your belt, what do you see? What are your first impressions of Hungary, and how is it treating you?
Thank you so much for the invitation, Gladden. It's really an honor to be here. It's also an incredible honor to be in Hungary at this important moment in United States-Hungary relations. I'm privileged to be here at a time when we are going to be revitalizing United States-Hungary relations in many aspects, and I look forward to talking about that a little bit tonight. In the past 30 days, I have to say I am in awe of the spirit and pride of the Hungarian people and the rich history that exists in this country. Not every chapter has a happy ending along the way, but one thing that I think is really admirable is the bravery and the resolve and the perseverance that just comes through over and over. And I've walked from one end of the city to the other end, and another thing that strikes me in my first 30 days is just the beauty. This is truly one of the great cities of the world, and you can't help but be impressed by the music, the stained glass, the architecture. It's really singular, from like the iconic parliament, the neoclassical basilica with the mummified hand of the first king, to the soft palette at the Matthias Church. I find the beauty really something to behold, and I'm also impressed, frankly, by the pride and construction that's going on, the restoration from Carmelite Monastery and the Castle District to the cranes you see across the skyscape. It's obvious to me that history matters, and and people remember. And I find that beauty inspiring. And I'm also lucky, I'll be honest. I'm an American, and we have, we've got history, Americans and Hungarians together. And like, yeah, just a couple weekends ago, I was invited to this little small town called Velem out in western Hungary. It's just such an amazing little piece of history where at the end of World War II, the Hungarian Crown Guard hid the king's crown, and then it was passed to the American forces for safekeeping, and went to the United States, and was at Fort Knox for 30 years being protected. And then in 1978, President Carter made what was a difficult decision at that time, and it was to return the crown to the Hungarian people. And so there we are out in Little Velem, and there the town people are unveiling a plaque to Jimmy Carter. And just really an honor to see that kind of pride. And I am lucky. So it's an honor to be here, and I have a lot to learn, but there's also a lot to do. And so that's my initial impression of the first 30 days.
Well, it's a great honor to have you here, and I think you've picked the right time to be here, not only with reference to the renewed bilateral relationship that you're talking about, but I think it's fair to say that it's a pretty exciting time for diplomacy as a whole. The new Trump administration hit the ground running on the 20th of January in quite remarkable fashion, and it's been almost 80 days now, and it's been pretty much uninterrupted activity. And you're a diplomat who's been serving for a very long time in some very exciting moments in recent American history. So based on that experience and the situation now, what overall do you see is changing now in American diplomacy from overall and from where you sit?
President Trump eschews orthodoxy and is constantly in search of common sense solutions to problems that are going to make kind of everyday Americans' lives better. And for Hungary, I think President Trump returning to the Oval Office, that really gives us Americans and Hungarians an opportunity to focus on mutual interests that are going to make both sides more prosperous, safer, and more secure. So I'm optimistic. And if there's one thing the president is proud of and he executes on, it's keeping promises. And if there's another thing that we could observe, I would say, is the president moves quickly. Every night we wake up and we read and then we execute, and that's exciting. And frankly, me being here, I am part of that. Secretary Rubio made the decision to send me out, and then I had about 7 days to get ready. And so things are moving quickly at the speed of President Trump, as they like to say, and it's an exciting time. So what does that mean for United States, Hungary diplomacy and foreign policy? I would say, overall, we are going to return to traditional diplomacy. And we're going to be focused on like a back-to-basics approach and what the president wants, and that is a return to common sense. And so one of the very first things that Secretary Rubio issued to his chiefs of mission globally was a call that we stop any pushing political or cultural causes that are divisive in the United States, and frankly, that are not always welcome overseas. And he asked us to return to traditional diplomacy. And so we're going to be focused on mutual interests, things that both the American people and the Hungarian people want and that our nations want. and we're going to focus on things that matter to our peoples. Now, that's not to say that there won't be disagreements. This is about nations, and nations have interests, and nations do not always agree with one another. But what I can say is when the United States and Hungary have disagreements, we will talk about that diplomatically, and we'll do so in private.
Thank you so much. Well, we have a lot of aspects of detailed foreign policy to discuss, but before we get into some of the details, I wanted to turn to the big picture about foreign policy. Obviously, we can already feel the changes from the Trump administration as a whole. You've talked about those with reference to the diplomatic practice, but how should we understand the changes that are being implemented by the Trump administration as a whole? How would you frame those foreign policy changes or the new foreign policy approach from a big picture standpoint?
Big picture, the United States Constitution is Article 2, Section 2. That's where the president derives his foreign policy authorities from the American people. And that is delegated to Secretary of State, that's Secretary of Rubio, and those who serve Secretary Rubio. So we speak with one voice on our foreign policy, and the president has brought in a lot of patriots to his administration to help him affect his policy. So, my chain of command is pretty easy. The president, the secretary, and then it comes to me, and then I've got my team at the United States Embassy, and they're patriots themselves. They've really responded to the president's call, and they're doing just a very good job in helping me to move this relationship quickly, and I'm thankful to that. And the general approach is American interests and a return to common sense, putting the American people first. And frankly, we deal better when we can look a partner in the eye and understand that they're approaching it from the same perspective. And that's thankfully the way the Hungarian government approaches things too. So we find common language, we find a mutual understanding that both sides are looking for areas of mutual cooperation and where we can expand our common interests, and that's making all the difference as far as I'm concerned. In that regard, Secretary Rubio has also been clear that we need to prioritize, and he's asked us to evaluate everything that we do by asking three questions. Will this make the United States safer? Will it make the United States stronger? Or will it make the United States more prosperous? And if we can't answer yes to any of those questions, then we've answered the question then, haven't we? We need to prioritize. We cannot possibly we've got a national debt of $36 trillion, and we cannot continue to have a perpetual expansion of what we're trying to do. And if we're trying to do everything, then we're not accomplishing anything. We need to focus on the big things, and that's the direction that the Secretary has asked us to pursue. And frankly, this is a perspective that we find that the Hungarian government understands quite well.
Well, let's turn to one of the things that's been really dominating the news in the last few days. It was almost a week ago that President Trump announced his new regime of reciprocal tariffs throughout the world, and it seems to be the beginning of a new U.S. trade strategy. So there's been a lot of headlines about that, even here in Hungary. I was wondering if you could take the opportunity to tell us what you see as the overall strategy of the Trump administration on trade and tariffs, and also how Hungary fits into this important trade relationship.
At the most basic level, the president wants to make sure that the United States is being treated in the same way that we're being treated, that we are treating other nations. And we've one of the most open economies in the world, and what Americans find overseas frequently are closed economies. We find tariffs, we find non-tariff barriers, and President Trump wants there to be reciprocity. He wants there to be fairness. That's the policy in a nutshell. Now, I understand that markets can move, but I would say that that market movement, that's investors evaluating companies and their modes of production, and frankly, many of those modes of production are bad for the United States. And so this policy is aimed both at governments and it's also aimed at companies, because the president's goal are to make things fair, to increase jobs, to raise wages, to bring manufacturing back, and to frankly make trade fair. So Hungary, we want fair trade. We want a fair playing field, and I frankly agree with Foreign Minister Ciardo's comments today that Brussels needs to take an active role in negotiating the way forward to facilitate such trade relations between the United States and the European Union. And this will all remain in place until the president decides that the threat from foreign tariffs and non-tariff barriers has been reduced.
The Trump administration has also clearly prioritized ending the war in Ukraine. It's a war in the neighborhood that has affected Hungary directly from the very beginning. And the United States is now leading peace negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv, and has also had its position strongly supported by the Hungarian government as well. What hopes do you see for peace, and how do you see this process playing out?
We are hopeful, and I think we need to recognize that Hungary has long advocated for peace, and President Trump shares that vision. And so we're very thankful for Hungary's support for the president's initiative to achieve a peace that is durable and lasting. As we enter a stage of what is difficult diplomacy, frankly, to achieve a negotiated settlement here. There's hard work that's being done, and there's a lot more that's going to have to take place. Two things are clear. The parties need to come to the table, and we need to see commitment, and we need to see progress. And the president spoke overnight over the horrific attacks that we saw in Károlyi-Csekonics, and he's expressed some frustration. We need commitment and we need progress. And the second thing we need to see is Europe needs to shoulder more responsibility for European security. This is very much the American viewpoint going forward. We would like to see our European partners do more in this regard. And part of the diplomacy ahead will rely upon continued critical NATO allies and European Union partners maintaining unified leverage, especially on our sanctions. And in that regard, Hungary plays an important role, and we are very thankful for Hungary's help in this regard.
And as you mentioned, the Trump administration is expecting a different posture from many European countries on the whole with regard to their contributions to their military and defense budgets and basically their overall role in providing for European security. It's definitely been an active 80 days in the transatlantic relationship as well. There have been a lot of key moments in that already, including the Vice President's appearance at the Munich Security Conference and a lot of other exchanges. So there's a lot to comment on, a lot to think about, and I think Hungary clearly sees a strong similarity, a viewpoint between itself and the new administration. So what would you say overall are the Trump administration's views on Europe, and how do you see that relationship developing in the coming years?
I've seen newspaper headlines saying things like divorce between Europe and the United States, and that is just way overstated and simply not true. We have to, look, the United States and Europe, we share blood, we share history, we share values, and frankly, we share a destiny. We've fought together on the same battlefields. Our forebears built the foundation of Western civilization, and our children, they will shape their future together, as far as I'm concerned. That's not to say we're not going to have some disagreements, and we have been quite frank. We want to see a stronger Europe, and that's because we think a stronger Europe would be a better partner for the United States. And that's what we want. We want a partnership. We don't want dependency. And a Europe that is willing to do more, especially in self-defense, because the Europeans have their own vested interest in securing peace in Europe. We would like to see the European nations invest more in their own defenses. This includes all of our partners, including Hungary. We would like to see increased defense industrial bases in Europe where production levels are increased. And you alluded to the Munich Security Conference, and I think that that's another aspect of what's at play here. Vice President Vance was clear that he said that we must do more than talk about democratic values. We must live them. And that's something that resonates. We believe leaders need to listen to their citizens, and that censoring the speech of those with minority views is not something that democracies ought to do. So we have been concerned by some things that we've seen, whether it be the annulment of elections or using legal actions to silence unpopular views. And that's something that I think the United States will continue to speak out about.
Here in Central Europe, there's also been a lot of headlines since the beginning of the new administration, particularly with regard to the activities of prior administrations in this part of the world. There were a lot of headlines about USAID, about reinventing the way that the U.S. operates through its international aid organizations. There's been a move that reflecting what you said about the importance of Article 2 and the president's authority over foreign policy. You also alluded to this important question of free speech and the importance of allowing movements to express themselves democratically throughout Europe and not cutting them off or censoring them. So how do you see that playing out in the next few years? How do you evaluate the importance of this change?
Well, I mentioned previously that Secretary of State Rubio basically challenged everybody working for him to evaluate all policies and programs that we're conducting and to ask the question, does it make us safer? Does it make us stronger? Does it make us more prosperous? And I also talked a little bit about how we needed to prioritize things and streamline our function and get back to basics. So as part of that process, Secretary Rubio reviewed all USAID programs as well as thousands of programs that were being run by the State Department. And we've stopped doing 83% of that. And some of the core functions of providing assistance to people in distress, for example, those functions are being moved inside the State Department, and there will be straight Article 2 authority from the President to the Secretary of State, and to have control over that. That's how we're moving forward in that regard. As far as USAID programs in Central Europe, all of them have been stopped.
Well, that brings us, I think, a little bit more closely to the topic that pertains to your role here in particular, and that's the relationship between the United States and Hungary. I think it's no secret to say that there was plenty of tension between your predecessor, Ambassador David Pressman, and the Hungarian government. It was quite sensitive at times. And with the return of President Trump to the White House, there's clearly an opportunity to reset that bilateral relationship. How are you thinking about, how are you planning to turn the page on your predecessor's tenure?
I like your phrasing, turn the page, and I think it's important to look forward. I would start by saying elections have consequences, and we're going to be going about things in a different way, but you can already see the political reawakening between the United States and Hungary happening at a very high level. It's no secret that the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Hungary are close, and they have opportunity to talk frequently. They met in December, they talked in March, they spoke last week. I won't be surprised if they speak again quite soon. We've seen Foreign Minister Ciardo, he's been to the United States. He met with Secretary Rubio, he met with our Treasury Secretary, he met with the National Security Advisor. And then we have delegations going back to Washington from Hungary regularly as well. So there's more coming. And then frankly, since my arrival, I have to say the reception has been warm. And I joke I have to be careful if I request a meeting, because if I request a meeting, I'm going to get the meeting. And the doors are being opened at a very high level between the United States and Hungary again, and this is giving us space to turn the page, to open a new chapter in what we're trying to do. So now it's important to take the relations between our leaders and turn that into real results that matter to the American people and to the Hungarian people, and that's where we're going to push. With first principles, we're sovereign nations. We have differences at times, but there's a lot we have in common as well, and we can each respect the other side and engage each other in a respectful way as we pursue common interests and our national interests. And so my approach will be a return to basics, a return to traditional diplomacy. There will be no activism at the United States Embassy. We are going to be focused on achieving results for the American people and producing things concretely. So one area, well, it's the big areas that I see that we'll be focusing on will be energy, defense, commerce, and people-to-people ties between the Hungarian-American people. On energy, we have a lot of room to grow. I've had some great meetings recently with Minister Lantos and the Deputy Foreign Minister Magyar, and a good visit out to the Paks nuclear power plant. And nuclear fuel is important because, you know, energy security is national security. And we, American businesses are ready to do delivery. And I'm optimistic that we are going to be able to do some great things together. Another area, frankly, where I see a lot of growth opportunities and work that we can do together is on small modular reactors. This is, we've got, you know, best-in-class technology in the United States, and we've already deployed this new tech to like Tennessee and Texas and Wyoming, and we've announced projects in Poland and Romania, and there's absolutely no reason why Hungary shouldn't benefit as well. Hungary has a lot of energy needs. They're producing batteries. There's room for growth, and we have American companies that are certainly ready to help there. And then finally on energy, I would just say, you know, LNG. This is something that's important to the president as well, and you know, Hungary is our ally, and we want a strong Hungary, and we want to always make sure that our friends are not beholden to any one source for their energy, and so Americans stand ready there as well.
And I think you've outlined a really positive vision of what that relationship will hold. I'm wondering if you also see a positive outlook for American businesses that are contemplating operating here in those veins. Unfortunately, there are still some incidents in which people are trying to pour cold water on the potential around the Hungarian-American business relationship, sometimes referring to more backward-looking evaluations that reflect concerns that haven't been resolved or could easily be resolved. So on the ground, looking at the prospects for American companies, what's the bull case that you see?
I think there's been, well, first I'd say I meet with about 2 to 3, at least, sometimes more American companies a week. They're coming in, they want to come to the embassy, and they want to talk to us about what they're seeing. And what I'm hearing is that there's been a real vibe shift in the commercial sector. It's not to say that there won't be challenges in expanding business here, but we're being told pretty regularly now that things are changed, and they're more optimistic about opportunities here. They're getting meetings with at the ministry, with the respective ministries in a way that they were not able to do previously. And I'd like to think, I think this is a direct result of what's happening at the political level. That political space is creating an opening for commerce here that I think is going to grow. We're going to see, you know, there's openness to American products, to American services, and it's reciprocal, frankly. So I see growth in the commercial space, and the good thing about American, both directions, like there's a big trade delegation preparing to go to the United States, and we welcome that kind of Hungarian investment in the United States. But seeing more American companies operating in Hungary is a great thing because these bring very high-value jobs. They hire Hungarians. They provide excellent training, and then they frankly give back to the communities in which they serve. So there is an openness to American businesses. And what I would also say is we now have access to the Hungarian government in a way that we did not have previously. The Hungarian government wants to hear from us, and if there are issues, there's a receptiveness now that I think is going to make things different, and it's going to make things better. So I don't want to look backwards, and I don't want to look backwards. I want to look forwards, and I think we've got some rooms in commerce.
Well, you've already been very generous with your time, but I'll ask just one last question, which is that, overall it seems that the Trump administration, as you said, wants Europe to be a good partner. It wants European nations to be excellent partners in the same shared project, which isn't going away. And certainly the Trump administration is offering a very particular view of what that is. It seems from what you described that you're really painting the possibility of a very strong and a very good partnership within that framework. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity for any closing thoughts. Could this be a model relationship going forward?
I didn't mention our shared security, but I think it's related to your question. I think we have opportunities to grow closer in the defense space. And next week we have a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense that'll be coming to Hungary, and we're going to have a high-level bilateral dialogue, and I can assure you that this has not been done anytime too recently. And that's
coming to our institute as well.
And they're coming to your institute as well. They certainly are. There's room for increased cooperation in that military space as we go forward. And I'm glad that we're going to be able to start pursuing that in earnest beginning next week. I would say, thanks to the relationship between the President and Prime Minister, that high-level closeness really is providing room for us here on the ground, both companies and government and average Americans and Hungarians, frankly. We have space to grow this relationship in a way that is going to yield results for the American people and the Hungarian people. So I'm optimistic. I do think we have a potential golden age in relations here, and we've got hard work to do, but I look forward to the results.
Thank you very much. And I think you've been working hard in your first 30 days, at least based on what I can see from the social media profile with lots and lots of activities. So welcome to Budapest. Thanks again for the conversation, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gladden.